Destiny 2 has just achieved its lowest player count in franchise history. That is the top trending news story as of today. Now, previously, we reported on a news story where Trials of Osiris had reached its lowest point, but that was specific to that playlist alone. I kind of thought that the entirety of the game was maybe doing a little bit better than that, considering that the PvE side of things has been watered pretty well. I mean, we obviously have new raid, we have various different new subclasses that make PvE more exciting, but unfortunately that is definitely not the case, and the population for Destiny 2 at this point in time is very alarming. We actually have a ton of statistics and numbers to jump into from the game post here. This is from Destiny Bulletin. Let's go ahead and jump into everything they talked about here. We got Destiny 2 hit its lowest player count in franchise history on Steam, with an average player of 32,000 players in the last 30 days. So that's just 32,000 players on average logging in daily for Steam alone. Obviously, we have to factor in, we have PlayStation, and then we also have Xbox numbers as well, but this is the lowest we've seen on Steam, and they do go through those numbers as well in just a moment. Destiny 2, the looter shooter MMO from Bungie, has just hit its lowest player count ever on Steam. According to the third-party Steam trackers like Steam Charts, game average for the last 30 days is at 32,000. This marks a steep decline from the high 123,000 average players in June 2024, when the highly anticipated Final Shape expansion launched. Since then, the average player count has plummeted by a staggering 74%. That's crazy to see. A staggering 74% loss is wild. That is definitely not what would have been the projections, obviously, after a very successful Final Shape launch. According to Charlemagne, a popular third-party bot that tracks player activity using data from the official Bungie API, Destiny 2 currently has an active player base of approximately 469,000 across all platforms. So you can see the stark contrast. There's obviously a lot more people playing on console, but it still is a much lower number than where it should be. This figure includes players from PlayStation, Xbox, and PC, and keep in mind that there's also a lot of crossplay and the ability to turn off crossplay from various different platforms, and skill-based matchmaking, which divides us as well. So even though there may be all these players in the game, they're still divided in between all the different playlists, and then on top of that, divided into different categories based on either skill-based matchmaking or whatever it may be. Next up, we have below is a comparison of Steam's average player counts 3 months after the launch of a major expansion for the last 3 years. So by comparison, we can see where the Witch Queen launched, and then 3 months later where we were at, 66,000. When Lightfall launched, which was received horribly. The Witch Queen was received very well. Lightfall, horrible reception. 3 months later, 62,000 players. The Final Shape launch, 3 months later, 32,000 players. We're at almost half of where we were at in the projections from the Witch Queen and Lightfall. Now, I'm no mathematician, but that is alarming. Obviously, you want to have the projections be comparable from year to year to year and have a very similar budget from year to year to year, so you can basically predict what's going to happen and how you can adjust. And obviously, there's going to be some variation. Like maybe if it was, 55,000, it's like, okay, sure, it's a little bit lower than Lightfall, but it's like a few thousand lower. Like it's nothing alarming. When we're at like half of that, that is where things get a little bit alarming to me, but let me know if you agree or disagree in the comments below. Next up, we have Destiny 2 player count falls to a new all-time low. The last time Destiny 2 players numbers were on this low on Steam was back in February of 2024 when the game averaged 32,000 peak players. So what's driving the decline? Several factors are at play. First, and probably the biggest, is the conclusion of the Final Shape expansion. This long-awaited expansion wrapped up the game's decade-long Light and Darkness saga, leaving many players feeling like they've reached the end of the road. A portion of the community had stuck around just to see how the story would end, and now that it's over, they've moved on. Let me know if you agree with that sentiment. I think that a lot of people, they started with Destiny 1, maybe they popped in here and there throughout time, and they kind of wanted to jump in and check out the conclusion. Now, obviously the numbers don't necessarily support this in its entirety because literally more people bought Lightfall, but for whatever reason, a good amount of people, I think, bought the Final Shape to see the conclusion and then move on to the next thing that they had. Because obviously it's been 10 years, it's been a long time. Where were you 10 years ago when Destiny 1 launched, right? How much has your life changed? Another major factor is that Bungie recently went through a tough period with its second round of layoffs, affecting more than 200 staff members. Additionally, the future content plans for Destiny 2 seem to be changing significantly, with reports of annual expansions no longer on the table, opting for 2 smaller content packs a year. That's true. The sentiment towards Bungie has gone down quite a bit. That's why we talked about Bungie hitting rock bottom in a previous video. due to the layoffs. And then on top of that, it seems like Bungie is kind of going with a different annual expansion plan. Instead of doing the yearly big annual expansion, they're kind of doing 2 smaller content packs. And that doesn't really get me very enthusiastic. Now, maybe the way that they phrase it or explain it when they do reveal Frontiers, which they're going to be doing soon, maybe it will be more exciting. Maybe it will be something that gets the player base more enthusiastic about the future. But as it stands right now, it just feels like we're getting less. Like right now, the game feels a little bit like worn out, a little bit old and exhausted, right? And what we need is like a breath of fresh air, something new, something to get us excited for the long term. And we just don't really seem to have that right now. And these 2 smaller content packs a year definitely isn't selling it for me, at least. And I don't think it is for the majority of you out there. That's why a lot of people are looking away from Destiny 2 right now. Bungie's silence on the long-term future of Destiny 2 is also concerning. The good news, however, is that just yesterday, Bungie announced it will reveal Destiny 2 codename Frontiers next week, which was such good news. And it actually is, I'm not gonna say good timing, but it's like, that's about the only thing people could possibly get excited for right now. Like, Frontiers being announced is the only W that Bungie has, the only ace they have up their sleeve. Now, will Frontiers and their announcement actually deliver? Let me know what you think in the comments, because I'm very skeptical at this point. I'm starting to feel like there may not be anything Bungie can do to turn this ship around, because it seems like it is going downhill and it is going fast. But there's always a possibility that Frontiers could actually be Bungie's crazy master plan that they've been crafting, working on, and that it actually could keep the community excited and rejuvenated for the next few years. Who knows? All I know is that I kind of want to have a plan for like what the next 2 to 3 years looks like. I want to know that Bungie is committed to developing this game, taking us through crazy adventures. Obviously, Frontiers, it has the appearance of like us going to a new solar system. I'm assuming that's what it is. I mean, if it was something completely different, I'd be surprised, but I imagine we go to a new solar system, right? We pop up there. We're going to have all the same weapons. You're still going to have access to your vault and all your abilities and subclasses. That can't change. Like, they can't just redo the whole game. Like, that's just too much money and too much effort. As amazing as that might be, that's just too much. Your weapons, your abilities, your subclasses are all the same, but you land in a new solar system. You have a new tower. You have different planets to explore. You know, we're roaming around, you know, whatever, Tora bottle, right? Whatever people have theorized, and all the other different planets and everything that's going on. There's new, I mean, that's part of the issue too. Are there new enemies now? Or are we still fighting the Vex over there? Are we still fighting Cabal? We're still like Elixnians? Like, what is going on with the enemy races? You know, if we went to a whole new solar system, new planetary destinations, new alien races, that could actually be really exciting. That could potentially get everyone back to Destiny 2 and be quite excited about it. But keep in mind though, that it's still going to be Destiny 2. It is not Destiny 3. Again, you're going to have the same subclasses. You're going to have the same guns. That stuff is never going away. Bungie has said that they are never sunsetting anything in Destiny 2 again. So that's where we're kind of at a tricky point here, because if they're not going to sunset anything, then how do we move on to something new and exciting, right? If they've promised we will never sunset your weapons again, then how do we get like all new weapons that are going to be exciting? Like, you just have to keep adding more, adding more, adding more. But that's part of the issue too, is that if they never sunset, or if we never leave the solar system, which effectively is sunsetting, leaving the planets that we're at behind, then how do we get more? Do we just keep crowding this solar system with new planets, new planetary destinations? I myself personally have been looking at this different director screen for long enough that I would be okay with letting go of this solar system. I don't want to let go of my loot that I've collected. I don't want to let go of the subclasses, of course. But the solar system, it can go, all right? Nessus, we've been going back to Nessus for the entirety of this episode. It's dated. It's not interesting. It's not exciting. Let's go somewhere else. That's my opinion of what Frontiers is going to be. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. And will that actually sell you? Will that save the game? That is going to be the real key here, because as it stands right now, things are looking pretty dark. Obviously, Act 3 has already gone underway. It's going to end on October 4th. And Destiny 2 has now turned 7 years old today. Now, in a franchise that was initially meant to be on like an annual release, or maybe a 3-year game plan like what Activision wanted, a 7-year game on live service, obviously a lot has changed. But let me know what you think about this down in the comments below. Let's wrap on the news story. Lowest player population in Destiny 2 history. See you in the next one. Later.